Hello there, and I hope you're having a fantastic start to your day. This is the Morning Cafe right here on TV47, the home of untold stories. My name is Eric Munene. I am here sitting in for Linda Alela. Remember, you can make this show interactive. SMS as on 22047. You can call in live 0768095491. Let's have a discussion on several topics that we are going to touch on. But first, I have to, I feel like a motivational speaker today, just to share with you a few quotes about great morning. There's one by a very famous writer. Write it in your heart that every day is the best day in the year. That is Ralph Waldo Emerson. You write it in your heart that every day is the best day in the year. It's a blessing to be alive. We thank God that we've woken up this morning. And there's another one here that says, I get up every morning and it's going to be a great day. You'll never know when it's going to be over, so I refuse to have a bad day. Wow, powerful there, by Paul Henderson. So yeah, I hope those two are going to have your day moving. We have a lot lined up for you on this show. Later on, I will be joined by the general manager of Big East Africa, that is Michael Sinclair. Remember, this is a global education week. And then also we are going to be having two political analysts. We talk about Eyes on 2022, that is Gloria Oroba, who's a youth political analyst, and Degwan Jiru, a constitutional lawyer. I'm sure many of you know him. He was very instrumental when Governor Anne Waiguru was being kicked out. I'd say that the process of kicking her out when it got to the Senate, and Degwan Jiru was very, very instrumental in submitting his, or rather representing the MCAs who had kicked out Anne Waiguru. So let's take a look at what made it to the headlines today on the major political, on the major dailies across the country. We start with the Daily Nation. On the front page of the Daily Nation, that is what made it to the front page. The prison spurge, retired KDF brigadier, was yesterday sworn in after a crisis meeting at State House to take charge of prisons. This is after, the former Commissioner General of Prisons, that is Wycliffe Ogalo, was arrested, or rather fired, then later on arrested. It was a day that was filled with a lot of drama. I don't know if you can see that right now on my screen. That is the former Commissioner General of Prisons, Wycliffe Ogalo, leaving Magereza House yesterday. That is the Kenya Prison Service headquarters in Nairobi. He was arrested and bundled in that vehicle. Those are police officers you're seeing right there. They bundled him in that vehicle. Then later on was taken to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. But then again, there was a twist yesterday. The police said they were just escorting him home. I don't know why it had to be that dramatic, but yeah, he was escorted home. Then right there, still on the front page, you can see the United States Secretary of State, that is Antony Blinken, who is in the country. And I'd like to mention at that juncture that it's good you plan your day early to avoid, traffic jams. Plan your itinerary early. Usishikwe na jam ya Nairobi. Blinken has won on 2022 polls. That's very important, and won on the war against terror. The visiting United States Secretary of State has some worry, and he shared his concerns with President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday about the 2022 general polls. He also had a thing or two to say about the war against terror. This week and the past week, there's a topic that has sparked a conversation countrywide, and forced disappearances. A lot of families are crying, asking where the kin are. And, the Secretary of State has said that that is not the right way to go. He has said that security operations must be within the law. Then, Teachers Service Commission is apparently not done with, unions, or rather breakaway unions, because after Nancy Macharia, we all know it was in the public domain, after her public spats with the former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, that is Wilson Sosion. Sosion was eventually kicked out of the union, but now apparently it appears there are some breakaway unions that are starting to form, and TSC now is targeting the top members of that union. That story is on the back page. We're going to touch on it a little bit. Talking about enforced disappearances, but now we don't know if this is one of those incidences where people have been reported to be missing, but we have a family that is seeking help to find their missing kin. That is Steve Gabriel Osiche, who was last seen boarding a matatu at 10 p.m. In South B Estate, Nairobi, on the 1st of this month. That's his picture right now on the screen. Yeah, so what else do you have here? Well, Justice Chitembwe. The judge has rubbished Sonko graft expose. The former Nairobi governor had an expose in which he claimed that there are some judges who have been compromised, and that would have been not some very, very good PR for the judiciary. The judiciary has come under attack from very many quarters, and now the governor said that Justice Chitembwe, he seemed to zoom in on Justice Chitembwe, but the judge has said that that is rubbish, and has said very firmly that he's not going to step aside for investigation. So if you're waiting for Justice Chitembwe to step aside, then utangoja kidogo. Let's see. Let's go in, see what we have. Well, there's a new law. This one I'm sure is going to be a bit controversial, and you're going to get reactions from what Kenyans think in the streets, and my producer is saying that his story haibambi. So, secret wives to miss inheritance in new changes to succession law. That's landmark. That's a huge one. So it is official that secret wives, that's the key word. Mark that. Secret wives, stepchildren, half-brothers and sisters, among other dependents, will no longer have rights in sharing dead parents' estates. So if you want to inherit anything from Mzee, you have to make it official. You can go to Sharia House, make it official. My producer is asking if side chicks have also been factored in, but I think, yeah, this is it. So nothing for them after the sponsor, if I might call them that, goes to the next dimension or dies. So on page 4 of the Daily Nation, here's where the big story is. The bribery, negligence spark prison purge after 3 escape. That is President Uhuru Kenyatta, if you can see him right there on the screen, with the new prison boss. That is the brigadier who's retired, John Kibaso Warioba, who was sworn in yesterday. That was very sweet from President Uhuru Kenyatta. He was sworn in yesterday after a crisis meeting that was held between Uhuru Kenyatta and top security bosses. And it is said that the president is reportedly determined to put a stop to the increasing cases of prison escapes. Wow, that was daring. And he had to take the 3 to escape from that particular prison for the president to crack the whip. And as I said, yesterday was a day that was filled with drama when the former prison Commissioner General Wycliffe Ogalo was arrested, and then police later on said no, it wasn't really an arrest, or he was not going to be grilled at the DCI. They were simply just escorting him home. I wouldn't call it that. And if that was escorting him home, I wouldn't want to be escorted home that way myself, though. So the judge here, Chitembwe, Chitembwe has also been arrested before, by the way. There's a time he was arrested in his chambers, and he said that the money that he had, he was arrested by the DCI, and later on he said that the money that he was found with in his chambers was for paying school fees. And I think now the spotlight is on him again. There are clips that depict the justice was in compromising, that Justice Chitembwe was in compromising situations. And the videos were released on social media by former Nairobi governor, that is Mike Sonko. I saw the videos, and in the videos, one of the clips shows a man that was claiming to be the judge's confidant and brother in a meeting with some people who wanted to bribe them. And the bribe was in the, well, it was a payment of 100 million shillings. But Justice Chitembwe says that, you know what, I've seen this, nothing new, there's nothing to celebrate. I've seen the video clips. He actually says he saw them three months ago. So he is firm that he is not going to go anywhere. So all you, if you had hopes in having him go, amesema haendi anywhere. So let's cross over to the Standard. Let's see what the Standard has for us. Well, Chitembo responds to Sonko's tips. That is what has made it to the front page of the Standard. If you grab yourself a copy of the Standard, that is what you will see. The secret recordings in an exclusive interview. Judge has downplayed videos making the rounds on social media, describing them as edited and manipulated to fit a specific narrative. But he has admitted that he knows the recorded man. Wow, that's a fresh twist to that. Then still on the front page, prison boss sacked, grilled over committee break, and police deny arresting Ogalo, but only facilitated a smooth and seamless handover of office and escorted him to his home. I think we have that story. We'll play it back to you right now, and you'll understand why I'm saying that was not facilitating a smooth and seamless handover of office. If you ask me, no, that wasn't. That was quite some arrest there. Yes, and MPs lock out secret lovers from wealth. That story is in detail on page 3 of the Standard. Let's just go there and see what Homa Bay Town MP Peter Kaluma, who sponsored the Law of Succession Amendment Bill 2019, had to say. He said that strangers who have been pirating on the property of the dead have been stopped. And as my producer Mary said, that hiyo sheria ya Hibambi, I know that the law is quite controversial. A lot of people are going to there's something my director has said, but I'm not going to share it on national TV live kwanza. No, so former wives have also been blocked from taking over ex-husband's property, and the law also allows men to inherit property from their deceased wives. Wow. I think because I will be joined by a lawyer later on in this show to discuss a wide-ranging set of issues. We are going to also touch on that law. We want to know what the Law of Succession Amendment Bill 2019, which was signed into law by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday, means for people who have not officially been married. So basically, if you and if you start a partnership with someone, it's just good. What the law is saying is just good. You guys make it official. Tembeni hapo tu Sheria House, make it official. And you might be considered should the person die. There's an interesting story there about, FKF. Remember this week we've had a discussion about FKF, that's the Football Kenya Federation. It's not yet over for Nick Mwendwa until it is over. And the World Football Governing Body, that is FIFA, recognizes Nick Mwendwa, still recognizes Nick Mwendwa. They have written a protest letter to the CES, Sports CES, Amina Mohammed, telling her, to reinstate her. And now there's a fresh twist after, a judge, or rather a magistrate, that is Wandia Nyamu, said that Nick Mwendwa she will not allow him to be detained because there's not enough evidence to still convict him. But Mwendwa will still not address the media or attend any football activities. So yeah, that is what is on your screen right now. And let me just read kidogo what it has to say. When Miss Wandia moved to the second reason why she thought Mwendwa should not continue being free on 4 million cash bail or 7 million shillings bond, the football official, that is Mwendwa, appeared relaxed. So it's like he already knew the outcome of the process. Page 4 of the Standard. Videos were a revenge against me, says Judge Chitembwe. Still, he says the man identified in the videos as his brother is not related to him. So yeah, that's a fresh twist to that. And the judge insists that the videos they were edited and manipulated to fit a specific narrative. That story there by Winfrey Owino has detailed what we saw on the front page of the Standard. But the judge has been firm that he's not going anywhere. He's not going to step aside for investigations. We're going to follow that up with our news team. We see how that pans out. Still on that page, Raila queries Ruto's wealth and sacks of cash during rallies. Well, the former Prime Minister and the ODM leader Raila Odinga is questioning where the DP gets money. He says with a salary of 2 million shillings, he wonders and fails to understand where Ruto gets money to dish out and clothes. He says it's close to 100 million shillings. He's not specified the duration. He doesn't say if it's daily, monthly, or annually, but he says with a salary of 2 million shillings, he still cannot understand how the DP manages, to to do that. So yeah, the story there also, as you can see, I don't know if it's on your screen right now. There's the Wajir business community and religious leaders who had visited the former PM at the ODM headquarters in Nairobi. They also said, or rather dismissed, what they call the wheelbarrow economics, the bottom-up approach that the DP has been, promoting. And then on page 5 of the Standard, let's wrap up with this. Ethiopia conflict threat to regional security. That's the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who has called for a diplomatic solution to the year-long conflict in Ethiopia. Remember, the Ethiopian Defense Forces and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the war between the two has been ongoing for over a year right now, and it has left thousands dead. And the U.S. Secretary of State says that that situation right there in Ethiopia is a threat to regional security. There's a lot that he talked about with the president there. Remember, he also insisted on solving this problem of enforced disappearances, saying that whatever operations that are conducted, security operations, they have to be within the confines of the law. So that's that on the Standard. Let's cross over to the People Daily. That is what made it on the front page. Prisons boss takes the fall for jailbreak. So committee terrorists who escaped, Ogalo and committee commandant arrested for the recent escape of terror convicts. Oh, you can see those guys there, armed with balaclavas. Those are the guys who arrested the former prisons chief. I still find it funny that, the guys you're seeing right there on your screen with the balaclavas were just escorting him home for a smooth and seamless transition of the leadership at the prisons. As I said, in my own opinion, I wouldn't want to be escorted that way. Let's see what's inside. Still on Justice Chitembwe, pressure mounts on High Court judge to quit the bench, and as we've just said, he has said that he is not going anywhere, so muendelee kungoja. Despite the troubles that have rocked his career, Justice Said Chitembwe has stoically fought and emerged victorious to save his position. That's what we call 9 lives of a cat. Still on that page, state given 7 days to charge Mwendwa. The government has been ordered to charge suspended President of Football Kenya Federation Nick Mwendwa within 7 days, and because he's facing corruption allegations of alleged fraudulent acquisition of public funds. And if that is not going to happen, if that ultimatum by the court will not be met, then Mwendwa will be a free man. So we wait to see how that also pans out. So Ruto allies from Mount Kenya say no to Raila candidature. That is on page 5 of the People Daily. Leaders from that area are adamant that their only preferred candidate for the top seat is the deputy president. The DP has been there, and he says he has actually hit out at the Meru Governor Kiraitu Murungi, saying that he is imposing the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga on Mount Kenya East residents. That is something that also sparked outrage from some central Kenya leaders who asked the DP to respect the elected leaders of Mount Kenya or anywhere that the DP visits. On page 6, Uhuru visiting U.S. Secretary of State Blinken discuss regional peace. That is on page 6 of the People Daily. And then page 7, the new law locks out what they call slay queens and woman eaters. The Succession Amendment Bill 2019 allows only legal spouses to inherit property of the deceased persons. And as I've just said, we have an advocate in studio. He'll be joining us later on in this show. We are going to discuss a lot, but that also has to feature on our discussions. Now, a recap of what made headlines or what is current right now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has fired prisons boss Wycliffe Ogallo just days after 3 terror suspects escaped. And as I've just said, the firing that happened yesterday was very, very swift, and Ogallo will later be arrested, though the police department says it was not arresting him and were only overseeing a smooth transition. Our reporter Joash Onsare had that report. Have a look.
Days after 3 terror suspects escaped from Kamiti Maximum Prison and President Kenyatta fired prison's boss Wycliffe Ogallo, Ogallo could later be arrested, though the police department, the National Police Service, says that police only facilitated a smooth and seamless handover of office. Ogallo was set to address a media briefing Wednesday evening before it was cancelled. The invite indicated that he would explain the circumstances surrounding what he termed as his forcible removal from office. Ogallo, alongside 2 other top officers at Kamiti prisons, were arrested and taken to DCI for grilling.
DCI, yeah?
Among those grilled at the DCI headquarters are the commandant of Kamiti prisons, Charles Mutembei, and his deputy over the escape. His lawyer, Asa Nyakundi, however, says Ogallo was later released unconditionally from the DCI headquarters. President Uhuru Kenyatta appointed Brigadier retired John Kebaso Warioba as Prisons Commissioner General. Nine prison wardens at the Kamiti Maximum Prison are already in police custody following the escape. Mashraf Abdallah Akulunga, aka Zakarawi, Mohammed Ali Abikar, and Joseph Juma Odhiambo, aka Yusuf, escaped with police placing a 60 million reward on any information that will lead to their rearrest. A 60 million reward on any information that will lead to their rearrest. Officers at the Kamiti prison says that the 3 drilled a stone in their cell and left on Monday. Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
Now, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken Tuesday arrived in the country for his 3-day official state visit in the African continent. And as Elizabeth Atieno now reports, Blinken has called on Africans to defend democracy and restore peace. Have a look.
In the wee hours of Wednesday morning, the plane carrying the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, with the CS for Foreign Affairs Rachel Omamo as well as officials from the U.S. Embassy at hand to receive him. Thereafter, Blinken was welcomed at State House Nairobi by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The United States Secretary of State later held a meeting with civil society leaders in Kenya. The meeting addressed economic prosperity, defense cooperation, governance and civil insecurity, multilateral and regional issues, and public health cooperation. During the meeting, Blinken also raised concerns over the current state of security in Ethiopia, urging Americans in Ethiopia to take advantage of the opportunity and leave.
In addition to that, the conflict in Ethiopia is a threat to peace and security in the Horn of Africa. And that is of deep concern to us too, and it's of deep concern to our partners, including here in Kenya. We have urged Americans who are in Ethiopia to take advantage of the opportunity to leave. And my strong hope and conviction is we will help move things back to a place where it will be very safe for them to return, and for Ethiopia to continue to move forward.
Still on security, Blinken strongly criticized yesterday's attack in Kampala, Uganda, and he said, and I quote, "The attack yesterday in Kampala, Uganda was a painful reminder on how vital it is that we continue to work together to improve security throughout East Africa. The United States offers its deepest condolences to those injured and to family and loved ones of those killed." On matters economic prosperity, Blinken stated that the recent American private sector investments in Kenya across sectors is ranging from food processing to telecommunication, which total more than $725 million, including $93 million of investments in Kenya SMEs. A further $600 million was invested in the country to facilitate renewable projects in the country. Blinken is also expected to visit Senegal and Nigeria. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has signed into law a bill that will see secret lovers locked out of their partner's wealth in case of death. The bill had been sponsored by Homa Bay Town Member of Parliament Peter Kaluma, as Sharon Baranga now reports.
The new law of succession locks out secret lovers of men from trying to get a piece of their wealth when the men are deceased. President Uhuru Kenyatta signed into law the bill that had been sponsored by Homa Bay Member of Parliament Peter Kaluma on 12th November 2019 and was passed by the National Assembly.
Slay queens have fallen.
The bill sought to amend the definition of the word dependent so as to lock out illegitimate spouses from inheriting property of a deceased person. In the new law, a dependent is defined as the spouse and children of the deceased, whether or not maintained by the deceased immediately prior to his death.
For those who are not married, we encourage you to get married. If by the time your lovers or whatever you call them die, you have not formalized a marriage with them, keep off. Enjoy until he dies. Okay? But don't go claiming as a spouse when he died before you became a spouse. And the Marriage Act defines very broadly who is a spouse. If you are marrying under customary law, formalize it under the cultures involved. If you are marrying under civil law, go to the age, you get your marriage certificate. You are doing it in church wedding, go and wed. It will be a recognized marriage.
The president also signed into law the Refugees Bill and Foreign Service Bill. The laws will come into force after 2 weeks from the date they were gazetted. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga has yet again accused Deputy President William Ruto of amassing illegal wealth, which he says is proceeds of crime. Raila alleges that the money Ruto has been dishing out during his campaigns belongs to taxpayers and has been acquired through corrupt means. Mwangi Maina tells us more.
The ODM leader took a swipe at Deputy President William Ruto, accusing him of stealing from public coffers and is now using the money for campaigns. Addressing a delegation from Marsabit County, Raila alluded the salary that the Deputy President draws on a monthly basis cannot sustain his weekly donations, where he pitches camp for campaigns.
Kila mwezi anatoa shilingi milioni 100,000. 100 milioni na zaidi kwa mambo ya harambee. Mshahara wake milioni 2. Hii lazima anapata wapi? Hata safari kama hawezi kutoa pesa kama hiyo. Hiyo ni pesa ya umma ambayo ameiba.
The former premier further said the youth require jobs and a stable income and not handouts from politicians. Raila says his government will prioritize education for all, as well as create millions of jobs for the jobless. Raila trashed Ruto's bottom-up economic model, arguing it is a ploy being used to hoodwink Kenyans.
Tunaambiwa kazi ni kazi. Kazi ni kazi. Sasa vijana wetu wanaweza kufanya kazi ya maana, au sivyo? Wale ambao wanataka kuanzisha biashara zao wapate mkopo kutoka kwa serikali na walipe riba mpaka baada ya miaka 7 kama hiyo biashara zimenawiri.
The Marsabit delegation vowed to support Raila's presidential bid, and threw their weight behind him. The delegation presented petitions to the ODM leader, ranging from the drought situation in the county to lack of water and pasture, insecurity, and marginalization, and are calling on the government to alleviate the situation.
Nimesema kama vijana, especially wa kike, hatuhitaji wheelbarrow. Hatuna nguvu ya kusukuma wheelbarrow. ngamia zangu. That's easier for me kuliko kusukuma wheelbarrow. Sikuja kwa siku moja ukapandishwa ngamia. Ule mwenye anapandishwa ngamia ni mtu anapendwa sana. Hiyo peke yake inakuonyesha kuwa unapendwa. Come to Marsabit. Those votes are yours. Rest assured that they are yours, Baba.
Later in the day, Raila and his entourage toured Kibra, where a fire incident raised down market stalls at the Kibra Hawkers Market. Raila gave a donation of iron sheets and monetary donations for the purchase of construction materials to rebuild the market.
Ati wanataka vikundi wa vijana. Vikundi wa vijana ninakuja kufanyia harambee, amepewa hiyo wa vijana. Ati shule fulani hawana basi. Amenunua basi amepeleka kwenye shule. Ati ameingia kwa kanisa. Atajua ati huyo askofu ana mahitaji mengi na hana gari.
In his hunt for votes, ODM leader Raila Odinga has asked Kenyans to be united under the Azimio la Umoja initiative, saying that when Kenyans are united and the country is peaceful, it is only at such a time that Kenyans can experience development. Mwangi Maina, TV47 from Kibera, Nairobi County.
Still in politics, Deputy President William Ruto was on a third-day tour of Mount Kenya region yesterday, traversing Tharaka Nithi County. In his speeches, Ruto yet again openly fired a salvo at President Uhuru Kenyatta for supporting Raila Odinga's 2022 candidature. Paul Kirobi with more.
Deputy President William Ruto on his three-day tour in Mount Kenya region traversed Tharaka Nithi County. The second in command directing salvo to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Keleweke factions for watering down his development records after serving his boss for 2 terms and completing his projected agenda as planned.
Ati tumekosa mpango, tukakuwa wote sisi ni wajinga, mpaka wanaenda kukodesha mtu ya kitendawili, mtu ya kungoa reli, mtu ya kutupa mawe, mtu ya kuvunja machama, ati ya kuja aongoze sisi. Hapana. Hiyo ni madharau kabisa, hiyo watu wakwende kabisa.
Ruto allies accusing President Kenyatta for failing to honor his debt as agreed before taking over the government, branding him untrustworthy.
Alidanganya William Ruto, kadanganya mimi, kadanganya Duale, kadanganya Murkomen, watoto wake wote. Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, hii shida tuko nayo kwa Jubilee na kwa nchi hii hatungekuwa nayo kama ungefuata ule msingi tulikuwa tumeanzisha wa first term katika Jubilee.
Huyu mtu huyu ambaye umeshikana naye ni mtu ambaye taifa zima kutoka wale waanzilishi wa nchi hawakuweza kumbeba. Unabeba mzigo ambao hautauweza. Tunaelewana?
And as politics of economy continues to play out in Mount Kenya region on who will win the hearts of the vote-rich region, the second in command is keen on working with like-minded political parties, with the parties folding their tents ahead of 2022 polls.
Pia tuseme Keraito Murungi ataenda nyumbani. Ataenda nyumbani. Kila yule governor ambaye ameenda pande ya Raila, watu wa Mount Kenya wamesema wote wanaenda wapi? Wote wanaenda.
Speaking in Tharaka Nithi County, Ruto promised Mount Kenya people to continue pushing for President Kenyatta's incomplete project come next year.
Serikali ya mwaka ujao tutakuwa tumeweka sahihi kandarasi ya kujenga Kivino Dam ndio ilete maji hapa Tharaka Nithi County, na zaidi ilete maji hapa Tharaka, kwa sababu tukiwapatia maji mko na ardhi mzuri, mko na mchanga mzuri, mnaweza kuzalisha chakula ya kutosha.
The second in command promised to start allocating 100 billion Kenya shillings to projects that will create employment among the youths and also construct dams that will boost the agriculture sector.
Kwanza tutaweka bilioni 100 kwa miradi na mipango itakayopatia hawa vijana watoto wetu ajira kwanza.
The DP was accompanied by his allies. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi, NARC Kenya Party Leader Martha Karua, and former Kiambu Governor William Kabogo and a section of former MPs from the Mount Kenya region met yesterday in what is said to have been a Mount Kenya Unity Forum. Meanwhile, the Service Party has announced that it is open for pre-election negotiations with other parties in the wake of the forthcoming 2022 general elections.
Mlima Kenya tunaelewa kwamba tuko na vyama mingi na hiyo ni demokrasia. Kuna yale ambayo tumesikilizana kama mabosita samba ambaye lazima tutapelekea wale viongozi wote ambaye wanataka kuwa rais wa nchi ya Kenya, na tuwaelezee haya ndio yetu ambaye tunaona itatusaidia sisi kama watu ya Mount Kenya na itaisaidia nchi ya Kenya, na yule tutaona akona roho safi na atayatimiza yale ambaye tuko naye, huyo ndio tutaweka mstari wa mbele kupigia kula, kwa sababu mpaka saa hii hatuwezi sema ati tumefungiwa mahali, ati tumejifunga mahali, ati hatuwezi kuwa na mazungumzo.
Ni sisi kuanza kuingia kwa kaunti zote za Mount Kenya kuzungumza na watu wetu, na hiyo mipango tumepanga na mtatusikia siku za usoni.
Wakaaji wa Mlima Kenya,
well, so that is what made it to the the headlines yesterday. Just a recap of what made it to the headlines. And so right now I'm going to be joined by two political analysts who are going to talk about the eyes on 2022 and a recap of just what has made headlines in the past few days. We have Gloria Oroba, who's a youth political analyst, and Ndegwa Njiru, a constitutional lawyer. And karibu sana, Gloria.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu.
Yeah.
And Ndegwa Njiru, who's a constitutional lawyer.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for the airtime and the opportunity.
So let's just start with what you've just seen on your screens right now. Yeah. The Service Party, a party that is a few months old, or yeah, it is actually a few months old, now coming to the bargaining table and saying, you know what, at sisi we want to have our stake, we want to form negotiations with other, or rather engage in negotiations with other parties to form the next government. Your thoughts on that, Gloria?
I think until May next year, we're going to have a lot of these new parties or old parties that are actually rebranding and coming to the forefront as new parties. What's interesting though is that you're seeing Mount Kenya really struggling to try and convene a sort of alliance, a sort of let me say, like an outfit that is going to be seen as the one that is speaking on behalf of Mount Kenya. Mm-hmm. And in the past, to me, that is what I sense is panic from those Mount Kenya leaders who actually perhaps have thought they've been left behind, Before this, there was actually Limuru 3. Then we've seen Moses Kuria actually also trying to rally up a couple of Mount Kenya leaders. The 3 MKs, yeah? Moses Kuria, Martha Karua. Exactly. And so, I think until maybe May next year, for now it's really just about every other politician who has got personal interests, who want to be considered either as a running mate for the presidential candidates, particularly from Mount Kenya. That's what we're seeing, that they're trying to, put their best foot forward. And I believe that this is, it's good for the people because, as opposed to having just two political parties that are, let's say, the two strong political parties, who knows, maybe all these alliances and coalitions might bring us to a third or a fourth or even a fifth strong political, union that we can say now we have options as Kenyans to sort of, choose what is out there for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wakili Ndegwa.
Yes.
Democracy in the mountain region.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, it's very unfortunate that Gloria chooses to look at it as a community that is struggling to hang out its political relevance. Yeah. She forgets whether or not we have a political party in Mount Kenya region. We'll still go for the voting and the balloting on the 9th of August. And the balloting and the casting of the votes for the Mount Kenya region means a lot for us. And we are saying that our votes must count. we are saying that there must be value for each and every vote that is cast for whichever presidential candidate that may be. Then we are simply saying that a community that is not well conglomerated and a community that is not well organized cannot have a proper bargaining tool, and you cannot organize or mobilize politically without political parties. So these are not people who are struggling. These are parties, these are people who are telling the world that we are here and that we are the custodians and the trustees of the votes of Mount Kenya region, and that we being the trustees and being the political parties, there is no way you can sidestep us and ignore us. And soon you'll see Jubilee being organized and reorganized. And Jubilee will still come to the same arena with the same message that people should not take Mount Kenya region for granted. We have previously had a presidential candidate saying that should any person want to probably go to Mount Kenya region, that particular the person should pass through William Ruto. Shamelessly, he said that Mount Kenya, that is a gateway to Mount Kenya. I don't know when he convinced and he got all the 5 or the 6 million votes to his pocket. I don't know who told him that Mount Kenya region is so desperate that they perceive him as the only savior. So
they're not desperate, but there's a euphoric wave right now in the mountain region. You and me have to agree
it is an excitement that is being created by those people who think that they'll capture the mountain. It's a pure it's a pure utopic and myopic euphoria being created. The Mount Kenya people are not panicking. They're not even panicking as to what will happen to them in the future when President Kenyatta retires. Why? We are people who have always been able to organize ourselves. Remember, we organized ourselves and we brought the Union Jack down. We organized ourselves against the mighty British Army and we brought it down. So this is not the first time we're organizing ourselves. Remember, Matiba was there. He organized the entire community, the entire country, and they brought the Moist dictatorship down. So who tells the people that Mount Kenya region is in panic? We are not in panic, but we recognize all those political parties. We recognize TSP, we recognize NAK Kenya, we recognize Chama cha Kazi, we recognize the Tubebe Chama, we recognize all those political parties that are domiciled in Mount Kenya region. And those will be the bargaining and the bargaining tools and the bargaining vehicles. So anybody coming hurling insults at our leaders. The other day Ruto was in Meru hurling insults at Kiraito. The other day I think he was in Mombasa hurling insults at President Kenyatta and calling him Mutapeli and conman. Tell him to come slow. We are there.
You know, I think it's funny that when someone says it's euphoric, it's just excitement. But that's exactly, those are the things that when you're pushing, when you're in a campaign period, you are trying to touch on the emotions of people so that you can excite them so that you can excite them towards something. So when someone says it's just excitement, it's just euphoric, actually what they're trying to say is it's successfully working. Whatever narrative that is being sold, that William Ruto is selling to Mount Kenya, just as my colleague has said, is exciting them. It's making them euphoric about something. So, and you can't just where's Puza? You just say, oh, people are just excited. That's exactly what you want the electorate to be about you if you're a candidate, whether presidential or otherwise.
What Gloria doesn't know is that in Mount Kenya region we have a saying that nyoni dekenagio ne kirao, tutekenagio ne kirao ta nyoni. You see the way that means, translating that means, sisi atufurahisha na maua tu vile birds inakuja inafurahisha na maua. When the bird sees a flower, it becomes very illuminated and becomes very happy and very excited. We are not like that. We go slow, things go slow.
So that's just a sneak preview of what is going to come. Remember, you can SMS us on 22047. Call us live 0768095491. At TV47K is our Twitter handle. At Eric_Mnene, that is my Twitter handle. The hashtag is #MorningCafeTV47. I just want us to go through the papers and what made it to the headlines on the dailies, on the major dailies, before we delve into politics. Page 1 of the Nation. I hope you both got your copies. security. It's really about that prison purge that happened yesterday after the daring prison break at Committee. The front page there of the Daily Nation shows, the Commissioner General, the former Commissioner General of Prisons, Wycliffe Ogallo, leaving Magereza House, which is the Kenya Prison Service headquarters in Nairobi yesterday, flanked or rather sandwiched by police officers. And police officers later on, or rather the police, the National Police Service said that they did not arrest him. They were just escorting him home. I just want to hear your thoughts about what happened yesterday and the swift action that the president took, Gloria.
I think, I would say, first of all, if nothing happened, if no heads were rolling, it would really look bad, particularly because we just had an incident in our neighboring country. And we're talking about 3 terrorists, who were actually in prison and managed to escape. So, for once, I would say we are actually seeing, top management being looked at, and I am almost pushed to say that our president had to do something not only because he wanted to, but also because the international community had all eyes on us. So that was good. But also wondering, because we have seen the cabinet minister of Interior, our good friend Matiang'i,
Dr. Fred,
yes, being very, very, very involved in other things that are not necessarily matter security, being very involved in political issues. So we also need to look from the top, very top, and ask, okay, listen, this happened under your watch, this happened under, the time when you're the cabinet secretary also. So can we summon you and question you and things like, finally, for me, it feels like, it's not like the KEMSA where they're going for the officers, the program officers and the procurement officers. At least we are seeing, senior management being held accountable. And, I would urge our president, just like he said about KEMSA, that these nephews and nieces should also be, dealt with swiftly. And we should have, at least at the bare minimum, seen some arrests. And probably by now, because it's been over a year, we should have seen some convictions. So this manner with which they have treated this particular situation, we are calling for it in the managed equipment services, which was also a big scandal. There's a report sitting at the Senate. We are calling for it at KEMSA. We are calling for it at all these other, including the allegations of the SGR and things like that. So, for once, it kind of feels like, yes, this was the move. This was the move to make. Yeah.
Well, Wakili Ndegwa,
yes.
Someone asked, the government is giving, or rather has said or promised, a 60 million shillings bounty on the heads of the terror suspects who escaped. That money should have been used to upgrade the facilities at the prison. What do you think about that?
Yes, I agree. We need to improve our infrastructure. And we all understand that the infrastructures that we have were conventional infrastructures that had been put in place to handle conventional crimes. But now we have an unconventional situation whereby we are having terrorism, which is a new entrance into the world of crime. And so our facilities may not have been built to handle such kind of challenges, and therefore that's why it is important for us, and not just as Kenya, it's the entire world, it's a challenge of the entire world, that we progressively make sure that our correctional facilities appreciate the emerging challenges of terrorism, and then conform to making sure that when a confinement or an incarceration is done, then the same will serve the same purpose. In my view, this is not the time to begin blaming who was wrong and who was not wrong. Yes, there was a lapse somewhere. But even that particular lapse is if these guys escaped via that hole, then we can only say that it is a structural defect that had not appreciated the modern day challenges of crimes. And that's why it is important, as you say, to refurbish and restructure our prisons. But more to that, when I hear Gloria saying that the president is trying to hurriedly answer to the issues of international pressure, it tells me about the narrative that some guys are trying to create, that the president is very inept, that the president does not work, the president works on spontaneous reactions, that the president has no program for this country or plan for this country. That's a narrative that has been pushed for the last 9 years, because there's somebody who wants to take capital out of that narrative. That had it not been for me, work would not be done. Had it not been for me, work would not... Well, I agree. If there was an issue about the SGR, the persons then who should be answerable is President Kenyatta and William Ruto. They are the ones who are the helm of government. There should be nobody who there should be no sacrificial lamb. If there was lapse at KEMSA, it is the Jubilee administration. I have not heard William Ruto saying that he's not part of the Jubilee administration. So if we are then going to call people to account and hold people to account, then we are going to hold the president, and we equally hold deputy president to account. But even more to that, in my view, when it comes to deliberating of issues affecting us as a nation, we need to divorce ourselves from personal interest and become a bit objective and not subjective in a manner that will help us unravel the challenges and the plight that this country faces. Because if we were to go into details about issues of corruption, then we hold individuals to account. Then there are some guys who probably would have to go in some bunkers somewhere and try to hide. Because we'll be asking people like William Ruto to explain to us what he meant that it is only 7 billion that was lost in Kimorel when we are saying it is 64. We'll ask him to explain to us how the Hustler's jet was able to consume 100 million just flying from Nairobi to Lagos.
Wakili, yes. We're talking about a serious security breach.
Yes, that's why I'm saying that it's being trivialized.
No,
there's nothing being it is Gloria who has trivialized that very particular issue. And so I'm trying to say we should become very objective when you're discussing this issue, and we should not be invited to start looking at individuals.
The objectivity of this conversation is actually holding people accountable and holding individuals who have been given the responsibility to safeguard either resources or our security or what to some level of extent. When they go and they say, you know, I swear I'm going to act in all the interests of the country, blah, blah, blah. Those are the people who want to hold accountable. And it's funny that anytime we are talking about corruption, the only thing that anyone can push very quickly to the forefront is, oh, the dam scandal and this and that. And they are forgetting that we have a Senate report sitting citing the managed equipment services, citing specific people, specific companies that are known to our president, that are somehow connected to those around him. We are talking about an issue of the COVID billionaires, you know, where we had nephews and nieces of specific people in this country. So it is only fair for us to say, yes, this was a good move, because for once we, as Kenyans, as active Kenyans, we feel like, you know, for once, those who actually were given that responsibility to, you know, safeguard our country to a level of extent that they have the full autonomy to take action, have let us down. And so we are saying, you know, step down, you have been fired, we are going to conduct investigations. Hopefully we are going to see convictions, you know, and that's what we are saying, that at the end of the day, even if you were to say that, okay, let us hold William Ruto accountable and so, we are in an era where we can't forget. I mean, really, for real, COVID billionaires killed people. They killed people. And these are nephews and nieces of people that are known, you know? So we can't just sit there and say, oh, you know, maybe that one, you know, watch out to one of them. And we were promised in 21 days that we were going to have convictions. And that went silent, you know? We were promised that we were actually going to, because this was not even just an issue of a railway, like, you know, SGR or what. This was an issue where we were in a pandemic, we were given funds, and people actually murdered Kenyans by stealing these funds.
Okay.
So for me,
I don't know whether
it is about the objectivity, whether you want to side it with the Deputy President William Ruto or the President. The objectivity is who holds the full autonomy to actually fight corruption.
They both belong to the presidency.
Who holds the full autonomy? There is a reason there is a president, and then there's a reason there is a deputy who is assigned duties.
There is no, if you want us to delve into that, we can actually have some good.
Who has the full autonomy? Is it the deputy president or the president to deal with corruption? Who has all the instruments of power?
Okay, let's just switch our focus a bit.
May I answer that question?
Okay, very briefly.
Kindly allow me to answer that question.
Very briefly.
The question of autonomy. now they have just realized that we need to start apportioning government. That we are no longer in a Jubilee government. We are in a Jubilee government where there is high ranking, there is one who is highly ranked, and there is some hierarchy of some sort. So people are now trying to disassociate themselves with what is bad in Jubilee government and associate themselves with that which is good in Jubilee government. So I'm asking, if there is some bit of autonomy, there is some bit of that fictitious approach to matters of hierarchy, why is William Ruto associating himself with those things that government has done? Why does he have to associate himself with the construction of the roads, the construction of the airports done, the construction of the stadiums? So he's only involved when we are constructing roads, when we are constructing stadiums, when we are doing about good things, but where we are saying things have gone haywire, he's not there. I think we need some candid and truthfulness in the manner in which we approach the entire episode. And we should not try people should not try to project themselves as if for them they are demigods, and that for them they can only be associated with that which is good, and they are very much infallible. Even Pope Gregory tried to claim infallibility and he failed. So who is William Ruto to claim infallibility?
You can only associate yourself with the things
Gloria,
that you've been actively involved
just give him a chance.
You know?
Just give him a chance.
We have a bit of decorum. And
okay, just go ahead. It's okay.
So that then we're able to have some respect for each other. So in my view, going back to what Gloria is trying to trivialize the security issue, I think we also need to look at the entire prison institution. Yeah. How do our officers live in those particular institutions? Have we subjected themselves? Have we subjected them into a situation whereby they can easily be lured into corruption matters and bribery because of the circumstances in which they find themselves? So even as we sack officers, we must also be able to uplift their living standards. As we sack them, we must be able to see to it that they are able to take care of themselves, their families, and their relatives. So that at the end of the day, we are not only asking them to be so strict and to accountable, yet we ourselves, the government and Kenyans, are not investing in their welfare. I mean, these guys have families, these guys have, they are living to earn, and it is only unfair for us just to sack and we don't investigate the reason why these guys are being lured into doing what they are doing. I think they live in very substandard environment. And now because we have decided to do a prison reform, let us do a holistic reform in terms of the entire structure of the prison.
Okay, sawa. So I just wanted us to talk about what the visit by the U.S. Secretary of State, that is Antony Blinken, means for us. Yesterday he had a lot to discuss with our president, and one issue that came out is the issue of enforced disappearances. Wakili, you're a Wakili, and LSK had raised, its concerns about this after Wakili Nando was kidnapped and later on released by gunmen. But don't you think things are now getting out of hand if the senior-most U.S. official right now on Kenyan soil has to, point it out for us?
Like I said, we are living in very unique circumstances and situations and environment. And we are living in a situation whereby there is a total breakdown of security issues, not just in Kenya, but in the entire world. Part of these lapses and part of these security breaches have been, in my view, triggered by the advancement in technology. So it is true that the government must be able to protect lives, must be able to make sure that I'm guaranteed of my privacy and my security. But even as we do that, we are the people who harbor these guys. We are the people who harbor the criminals. We are the people who castigate government when government attempts to take some steps on these criminals. We are the people who are even facilitating the escape of these criminals. Right now, as we speak, these 3 guys who escaped from prison, they are within a particular family in this country. They are within a particular region. They are being housed by a particular Kenyan somewhere. And then here we are blaming government left, right, and center. We also need to be a bit civil and patriotic. And patriotism is what is lacking in this country. That is why you'll see somebody associating himself with what is good and disassociating himself with what is bad, because they lack patriotism.
Let's stick to the topic.
So if we could be patriotic enough, such things would not be happening. Because, for example, when Nado was being kidnapped, this is somebody who saw. When the other professor, I don't remember his name, who was being kidnapped, there's somebody who saw on that particular street. But nobody could raise alarm, because we are not civil enough, we are not patriotic enough. We must become one brother's keeper. So that at the end of the day, we create a network of security for each and every person. So in my view, it is becoming a serious issue, these disappearances. And government must be able to deal with it and give confidence to the people that yes, we are government and we shall be in a position to protect you. And that is why it is a challenge for all the presidential candidates to be able to factor this into their manifesto. How will you guarantee individual and personal security for the Kenyans? Because a president is sworn in to protect security. But the question is, when a president is being internally sabotaged by people who are within government, so that they can have a reason for blame, what do? I think President Kenyatta finds himself in a very unfortunate situation, because the saboteurs are within government.
Okay, I think time now for a very, very short break. Gloria, you'll react to that, a senior U.S. official, the highest ranking U.S. official on Kenyan soil right now, had to come and tell us problems. We now have to take a very, very short break. Remember, you can SMS us on 22047 at TV47KE is our Twitter handle, at Eric_Mnene is mine. Let's interact. Morning Cafe will be back in a few. Welcome back to Morning Cafe. I'm in studio with Gloria Oroba, a youth political analyst, and Wakili Ndegwa, who's also a political analyst. We're talking about the issue of security. U.S. Secretary of State, that is Antony Blinken, has said that security operations must be within the law, and that is where we were before we took a very short break. Gloria, we want to react to what Wakili was just talking about.
Yeah, I wish we would discuss topical issues without having to force to bring in William Ruto. I know we love him all, but this is about security. This is about actually having security operations within the law. So if we would stick to the topic, what we are talking about is, or what we have been, you know, the US is trying to remind us, is that as much as we are trying to safeguard our borders, as much as we are trying to ensure that those who are criminals are brought to book, we have to follow the law. We have to have respect for human rights. Our constitution is very clear on that. There's the freedom and security of a person not to be detained illegally. That has to be kept up, because those are also some of the things that we see. We have, I'm in the NGO world, and I can tell you that we give free legal services in the slums to those youth who are actually arrested without trial, detained without, you know, they're just kept somewhere because apparently, you know, the police can do that. We're talking about issues on police brutality. Those are the issues that we are being reminded, that as much as, yes, you know, this person could be a suspect to ABCD, you know, police brutality cannot be tolerated. We saw the other day Eric Omondi being arrested when he was trying to protest for whatever reasons that he was. We saw the manner with which he was being handled. All those forces down on a person who is literally a Kenyan. So, you know, what we need to be reminded.
He was resisting arrest.
If I saw it right, if I saw
resisting arrest. You know, I allowed you to speak,
I'll be civil.
and you asked me to be civil.
I'm well guided.
Yes. So, you know, we are talking about issues of missing persons.
If I saw that right, the artist was resisting arrest.
You know, there are two ways to deal with, for instance, a rowdy crowd. Are you going to shoot them with live bullets because they are rowdy, because they are threatening to you know, stop the peace?
Police are trained on how to handle people.
They are trained on how to handle people, and before you escalate to a certain level of aggression, you have to have used certain other skills. That's what we're saying. And that's actually what we're being reminded. And as much as we would like to say, oh, huyu lazima afanyiwe ABCD, look at the issue of Mwende Mbijiwe, you know, who went missing, who for a long time it is alleged that our government actually knows as you know, that he's not only, right now he's not a missing person, but he has apparently passed on. And you know, there's a clip, there's a video of a very senior person in this country actually, either he forgot or I don't know what happened, and he declared the person dead. So what I'm trying to say is, on most
it's
of
not a laughing issue, but I know what you're saying.
On most of these instances, first of all, by the way, what most Kenyans don't know is we have highly skilled intelligence personnel within our security systems. We, you know, most of the things that we think the security systems don't know, they actually are aware. Our intelligence is so spot on to the extent that sometimes we actually, other countries come in to benchmark on it. So I think the issue of security operations staying within the law is actually to remind us that we still have under the Constitution, our constitutions, the Bills of Rights. And that's why when this gathering was actually convened for human rights activists and those in that space, because they understand that those are the people who are actually trying to say, as much as we're dealing with terrorists, we can't afford to have any other perceived Muslim from the coast who has walked out of the door to go missing and is tortured and appears or doesn't appear again. And you know, the last person they were seen with was with the police. So, I mean, for me, it's more or less understanding that we have systems, we have a law, and you know, if we can't follow the law, and now I'm just going to put out some of the instances where, when you look at the leadership that we have now, we have a president who actually does not care much about court orders. That has been demonstrated by how he has acted on certain court orders. For instance, we have the NMS was declared illegal, but nothing is being done about that, and yet this was something that he spearheaded and pushed on. The CAS's positions, the Chief Administrative Secretary positions, have been declared unconstitutional and illegal, yet we see him appointing and appointing on the same position. Look at the court orders of Miguna that have been put out, you know, and look at how our president chooses to deal with it. So when we have senior personnel coming from another government to come and remind, it is clear. It's because it's like, listen, you are not actually following the law. You're not actually taking the judicial system seriously. You're not being a leader who understands that you're leading people within a government, within a constitution, within the law, that you also are not above. So for me, all these issues on missing persons, police brutality, illegal detentions, Miguna's case is very clear. It's very clear. I mean, until we deal with that, it is very clear that our president does not care much about court orders. This is something that he can act on. This is something that he can, you know, you can't say, oh, no, we are blaming Raila Odinga or this or that. It squarely fits who is giving out red alerts, who is pushing for those kind of influential things that he cannot, that Miguna, a Kenyan born, you know, a citizen by birth, cannot come back home, if not the president. So at the end of the day, I'm glad, and this is why I said earlier on, our president sometimes forgets that he's also a Kenyan, and sometimes he has to be reminded. And unfortunately, it appears as though the only people he respects highly and who can push him to act in a certain manner are the international community.
Okay, so yes. Gloria, let me ask you this. You're talking about the president disregarding some court orders, but you're talking about an entire criminal justice system here. This is just security. These are matters pertaining to security only. But when you turn to the first, or rather the front page of the Standard, you see that's what made it to the front page. Chitembwe, Justice side, Chitembwe responding to Sonko's tape. You're talking about the president not following some court orders, but the president sometimes has intelligence, he's guided, he has access to a lot. And I remember during the saga that was surrounding the appointment of the Court of Appeal judges, he said that he has information that the said persons were not people of good standing. The 6 judges of the Court of Appeal who are yet to be, confirmed. And I want you to react to that, Wakili Ndegwa.
Yes, yes.
What is ailing our judiciary? Is it the weakest link in the fight against, crime and basically restoring justice in the country?
Thank you, Munene. What we must understand is that towards the build-up of the 2010 Constitution, we must understand that there was a consulted effort from so many other quarters. The civil society, which Gloria represents, was part and parcel of this clamor. The political class was part and parcel of this clamor. And there was also some silent Kenyans who are civil, who are also part of the clamor. So when we got the new Constitution, the individuals who were fighting for this new Constitution, they ended up being placed either in political class. Some of them found themselves in government parastatals. Others found themselves even in these courts that we deal with today. So what essentially that happened, and there are some others who also did not find themselves somewhere in the matrix. So everybody came with what he or she had in the clamor, and forgot to metamorphosize into now the situation that is currently facing him in that particular office. Those who never got any reward for the works they had done for the 20 years clamor, they continued with activism, and they are doing their activism outside courts, outside the judiciary, having influence in the judiciary. They're having their clamor outside the political environment, but having influence in the political classes. So what am I simply saying? I'm simply saying that currently some of our courts, because I'm a practitioner and I know this, they have degenerated into judicial activism, in a sense that they are not looking at the ends of justice, but they are looking at the means in which that pronouncement in which they do, the impact it will have on the executive. Remember, these activists who found themselves in the judiciary before the 2010 Constitution were fighting the executive. So they have now come with that mentality that, you know what, we are still in war with the executive. They have failed to understand that they are now in an environment of accountability, transparency, in a situation where they have to oversee the implementation and the observing of the rule of law. They have forgotten that they have to do and to deal with the issues of building the spirit of constitutionalism in this country. So they found themselves still continuing with the works of activism, and that's why you can see some of these orders being granted. For example, the question of Miguna. Neither me, nor you, Munene, nor Gloria has the inside story of the Miguna's citizenry status.
But he's a citizen of this country by birth.
But he said he denounced. I do not have a moment, Gloria. I have no contra evidence to countenance that. I have no contra evidence to controvert the position that he denounced his citizenship. And it is true he must have, because by the time he was acquiring the citizenship of Canada, Kenya had not legalized. We had not enacted Article 12 we had not enacted Article 13 of the Constitution that allowed dual citizenship. So the question is, how then, before the promulgation of the 20 Constitution, was Miguna able to retain the Kenyan citizenship and also acquire the citizenship of Canada when Kenyan Constitution had not legalized dual citizenship? So he must have denounced. And then he's being told, because there's no way he could have actually held those two duos when Kenyan system and legal system, the legal regime had not allowed it. So he's being told, you know, Miguna, come here, make an application for you to be reinstated or for you to reinstate your Kenyan citizenry, because now the Constitution has allowed that. But the guy has become a demagogue. The guy has refused to do that which is required of him. So in my view, there are some orders that are coming from the courts that are not capable of being implemented. Let me give you another example. The court pronounced themselves and said that the CSs, the cabinet secretaries, who are serving in President Kenyatta and William Ruto's government in 2013, who are reappointed, are not properly serving because they were not vetted. But remember, the court is saying that people like Akina C.S. Matiang'i and people, Kina Balala and others, ought to have been vetted for the second time. So they are saying they are illegally in office. But these are guys who have been performing serious executive functions, including budgetary. This budget that is coming from those people who we are saying are illegally serving is the same budget that is being used to run the judiciary, to pay even this judge who is pronouncing himself on those particular issues. The question then is, if a budget has been promulgated or formulated by a person or a cabinet that is unlawfully constituted, then the product of that process is also an illegality, because it's garbage in, garbage out. That judge who made that finding should have been the very first person to say, because I am now receiving salaries from a budget that was unlawfully constituted by the cabinet when it was unlawfully constituted, I'm then I'm surrendering my salary. I'm even saying that I should be surcharged for having received unlawful salary. You see, there are some orders that are not capable of being implemented. That's why we are saying the courts and the judiciary must become a bit realistic to the circumstances. The judges that we have are the judges that we call, it has actually, the judiciary has been captured by activism, both inside and outside.
Wakil, I think what the judge meant there, you know, vetting is it's just a process like any other interview. It's like interviewing.
But
let me just finish. I'm sure when you're starting your career, your practice, you know, moving from one law firm to another.
Correct.
I'm sure your bosses wouldn't say that, you know what, we've seen Wakil Ndegwa probably argue in court, so automatically he comes in. It's just a process. It's just a normal interviewing process. Yeah.
I hear you. But there's a question that we always ask in court: the justiciability of an issue. Justiciability of an issue is the ability of the court to deal with that issue judiciously and issue orders that will not be in vain, because orders of a court must not be issued in vain. So when you issue an order and say that Matiang'i is not serving legally, and he has served in that government for the last 3 years or 4 years, he has performed executive functions that also affect the entire country, how shall we reverse? So the first thing the court must do before they admit a claim or a petition or whatsoever is to determine the justiciability of that particular claim and the ability of the court to issue orders that will not be in vain. For example, look at what is happening to Justice Chitembwe. I don't want to comment much on it because I've also seen from the social media. I grant him the presumption of innocence. I grant him probably the right of response. And I also discredit the sources of this information, because these sources of information is coming from a person who is so much wounded, myself having led the impeachment of Governor Sonko. So in my view, we should not condemn him through the papers and through the media. Justice Chitembwe requires to be given an opportunity to be heard. And anybody who is making a claim against him should do it in a substantive way, not through the social media. So that then Justice Chitembwe is granted an opportunity under Article 47 and Article 50 of the right to be heard and to have a substantive reply to this. So we are now condemning over the papers. We are inviting him to go for interviews. To respond to what? There is no petition that has been brought before him. Anybody who is aggrieved by Justice Chitembwe knows that there exists a Judicial Service Commission. Why don't you file your complaint before the Judicial Service Commission so that then the judge can have an opportunity to be heard? I mean, we are all equal before the law, and we should have equal benefit of the law as prescribed by Article 27.
Allow me to come in here.
Okay.
It's funny that he pegs his final argument that there is a process and there's the Judicial Service Commission, and if someone has this and that, they should go there. That is the same statement when you asked me about the president and when he had intelligence about this certain few judges that he's not going to approve. He can also follow the process. He can also, you know, put in with the information that he has and the intelligence and all those, I assume, would be proof of evidence that these people have been participating in illegalities. He could have also followed the due process before telling us, I'm not going to, you know, get these judges in because I've been told some information. So it's funny that people only choose to follow the law and the constitution when it actually, when it's convenient for them. When my colleague talks about that, you know, there are some orders that cannot be implemented. The order on Miguna that says clearly he should be given back his, first of all, his passport, that he should be allowed back in the country. How can you not implement that? What is the red alert? What is the red alert? Who has put the red alert, and what is so difficult in implementing that particular order?
But Wakili was saying, Wakili has just said...
He did not.
No, you should address yourself to the law.
Wakili has just said that Miguna, you know, he renounced his citizenship.
No, he did not.
How did he acquire?
He did not.
Duo? How
and
did
you
he
know why I'm
acquire
going
Duo?
to ask him that question? Because he stands here speaking as the government spokesperson.
No, I'm not government spokesperson.
So was a Canadian.
I am not a government spokesperson. That's a legal position.
Was a Canadian approved by the Independent Electoral Board, IEBC, to vie for Nairobi governor? Was that a Canadian at that time? You know, if he's going to use timelines, he's saying that by the time Miguna was a Canadian, we were not allowed to have dual citizenship. Then I'll use the same basis to say, by the time Miguna ran for Nairobi governor, also he was cleared and approved by IEBC as a Kenyan, because that's one of the minimum qualifications. So, you know, at the end of the day, and this thing that I hear people saying, judicial activism, it's nonsense. It's like saying humanitarian activism. It's like saying climate activism. It's people who stand and speak facts and push for fair and just systems under our constitution. That is not activism. That is actually people who are holding people in office accountable. So if I come here and I say, listen, you are the CS of Interior, and what is happening is that you're not looking into this and this security breaches, which here is the evidence, and I'm holding you accountable. It's not activism. It's me as a Kenyan actually practicing my right to hold accountable the government of the day. Gloria. To actually question them and say, for instance, you have a building bridges initiative. How constitutional was that initiative? And as much as you were trying to tell us it was about peace and prosperity of Kenyans and ABCD, did you follow the law? Where was that money coming from? That's the reason why, even at the end of it, BBI is dead. It was declared unconstitutional. So at the end of the day, you might want to impose your own ethics and what you think is moral, and Gloria, what you assume is what is right. But Gloria, we are guided by our constitution.
Let me ask you this. We go back to Justice Chitembwe. This is not the first time that he's allegedly being caught with his hand in the cookie jar. This does not portray a good picture, you know, of the judiciary right now. What message do you think now this sends, irrespective of the fact that whoever came up with these allegations, as Wakili says, is a wounded person, he might act, you know, like a jilted lover, if I might put it that way. What picture do you think this portrays for Kenyans, for the Wanjiko who's seeking justice?
I think for me, in the spirit of constitutionalism, like my co-panelist said, you know, you can allege, you can even produce evidence. But have you actually followed the process to, you know, place this person, to put this person accountable? Have you gone and filed somewhere that you've been aggrieved? Or even as an active Kenyan, has anyone gone to say, now, why is this guy still in the chambers? Because, you know, me and my activism, as you want to call it or whatever, feel that at this point, you know, his morals and ethics and whatever, and according to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, he does not, and you understand? Yeah. So, and what I actually want to talk about in this particular case is, unfortunately, whether or not Chitembwe is guilty, the accuser, who has chosen not to follow the processes, actually has motive. So even without having to go to law school, you know, it's kind of like sasa wewe kwa sababu umeimpeachiwa, sasa you are trying to, you know. So this is an issue that for me, unfortunately, as much as we are trying to hold now our judicial systems accountable with the ethical level that is up there, unfortunately the whole situation has already been marred with personal interest. So for me, I don't even want to focus on Chitembwe because, as my co-panelist has said, nani amefile kesi na nani anafuatilia.
Unless you agree on one
thing. Know, that one we agree on. Because for me, I'm not agreeing on something just based on the fact does it look good for me. We are talking about constitutionalism and actually being able to be guided by the law. And as we are guided by the law, we are waiting for someone to go and actually file a case or to go to the, like you said, Judicial Service Commission and complain and ABCD, which also our president, when he got that information of the judge, the intelligence that he had, he could also either as the executive or through, you know, a lobby group or whatever, go and file through the Judicial Service Commission and say these people are not going to be approved. And
allow me just to chip in.
On finality of that, I would say, to say that certain court orders cannot be implemented. Those court orders have been given by judges who live in this country.
Also address
for instance, the advisory that was given to the executive, to our president, about dissolving parliament because we had not met the 2/3 gender rule. To say that it cannot be implemented is you have decided this will be such a headache for me at this particular point, so I'm not going to implement it. It's not that it cannot. It could have. We could have dissolved parliament. And yes, that could have plunged us into chaos, but it doesn't mean that it could not have been implemented. Lifting a red alert, you know, as the executive, as the president of this country, lifting a red alert so that Miguna, a Kenyan citizen by birth who never renounced his citizenship, can come back home to his home country, to his soil. There's nothing. What do you mean he can't do that? Like, explain to me how that is an order that he cannot do.
You want to react to that?
You know?
Three issues emerging. One of the things that we must have some is decorum, that you cannot sit here on the national TV and discredit my submissions and call it nonsense. In where we are or where we come from is that we always run to respect people's opinion and hold them with decorum and high head. So I hope she's well advised.
Just go ahead.
The other opinion that I have is that she comes from an activist world and she's not focused on where we want to be. We want to be in a country that looks at the holistic of the Constitution and build the spirit of constitutionalism. Not just a constitution peke yake, but the spirit of constitutionalism means that we live in the spirit of that particular constitution, and the constitution lives in us, and we breathe life into it. So having said that, you are castigating President Kenyatta for having not appointed these judges to the Court of Appeal. Then you are saying that the President Kenyatta should have gone back to the Judicial Service Commission to launch his complaint as against these guys. But remember, Munene and Gloria, what was the origin of these proposals for the appointments? Was it not the Judicial Service Commission? Is it not the Judicial Service Commission that recommended their appointment? Were they not the same people you are telling us to go and file a complaint against these judges too? The question is, if the Judicial Service Commission at the first instance cleared these judges and forwarded their names for purposes of appointment to President Kenyatta, how will President Kenyatta revert back to the same persons who have proposed the appointment? Unless we create another organ that will investigate into this, because the law says you cannot be a judge in your own case. The law says there must be impartiality. If President Kenyatta forwards back these names to the Judicial Service Commission for purposes of addressing the allegations, how impartial will this commission be, yet it is the one that proposed the appointment? On the issue, I think we are asking too much on President Kenyatta, and we are failing to look at the holistic institutional arrangement that we have. We should be asking ourselves, in the event the Judicial Service Commission forwards a name that has issues for purpose of appointment, what will be the recourse to the appointing authority? What will the appointing authority do if he realizes that at the point of the appointment, a judge has particular issues and queries? So we should be asking ourselves, do we go back to the same Judicial Service Commission, or do we have another avenue for redressing that? But in my view, there is no way we can go back to the same Judicial Service Commission that proposed the appointment of these judges. On the question of the Miguna and the running of the election and the governor of Nairobi County, it tells you that the institutions that we have are not credible enough. Remember, it's not only Miguna who was cleared by the by the IBC to run when he had faults. We have people who had criminal cases. We had people who had escaped from prison, but you are still vetted and still allowed to run for elections by the IBC and the EACC. So we are saying we should strengthen our institutions, capacity build them, and have trust in them so that they are able to sieve. They can apply the doctrine of severance and be able to deal with all these issues before they get the electorate.
For example, do you think that would have been possible after the president, in his famous speech said that we shall revisit after the 2017 election nullification? Do you think that would have been very, very seamless?
It would not have been. It would not have been. I believe by that particular time, the president was acting in heat of passion, and he was justified having
and on
election.
the issue of Miguna, is not acting.
Just let him finish.
I'm just asking a question.
Okay, and maybe
I'll ask questions.
Because the issues of you can only ask me questions. You cannot ask me questions.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
On the issue of Miguna, because they keep on reoccurring, if the IBC cleared Miguna to run for governor in Nairobi, it doesn't mean that we should close our eyes to the originality and the origin of the faults. We should then be asking ourselves, how was he granted and given a Kenyan passport when he had denounced the citizenship? It doesn't mean that because there was a wrong that happened yesterday, it cannot be remedied today. So we are simply saying that even in the coming election, we should be able to caution ourselves. But even as we caution ourselves, we should also listen to our leaders. That's why the president was saying, because we cannot holistically trust these institutions, because they have failed at us in the past. For example, the IBC failing us on the issues of Miguna, accrediting him to run for an election when he's not a citizen. Because the IBC has failed us in the past in failing to look at the integrity of individuals. Let us not elect thieves. Okay. Let us know them. We do not elect them, so that we cushion ourselves.
When you say when you talk about thieves, and I will want you to I will want to go into details into that. But now time for a very short break. We'll talk about the eyes on 2022.